Lulu here in my art studio, and it's about a week later, from when I showed you that little starfish, and it was supposed to grow 600%, and it was representing your spiritual growth. And I wanted to show you a follow up of it, and I, got the little starfish, and here it is. And if you saw it last time, it's grown tremendously. Now the thing I noticed here is, and which is actually kind of representative of the spiritual path, is the starfish doesn't look quite as perfect and beautiful. In fact, this little leg here is kind of all kind of funky, as it did when it was smaller. And and how that represents the spiritual path is that when we're growing spiritually, it's not always pretty. At least sometimes when I've done my growth on the spiritual path, sometimes I'm someone who has to have it happen more than once. Have you ever had that happen where you circle around and you see the same kind of problem happening because you haven't quite gotten the spiritual lesson? And so, it's about not giving up, and that's the thing about, I'm going to put this star back in the water and see if it grows anymore. But, I thought it was kind of funny how it's not growing as perfectly as I was hoping. And it looks a little awkward, a little funny shape. And sometimes when you're on the spiritual path, wanting to grow, what I have found is whenever we're not listening to spirit, I talk about your spirit guides and your intuition of growing those gifts, and when we're not listening to it, life gets hard. And that's why sometimes it can look a little funky, like this starfish, because if we're not really having our intuition and we're not listening to it, life can get really hard, and I have found that things just get harder and harder because Spirit's trying to get you to listen. And so what you have to do, you have to really, one, practice detachment or attachment. You won't have to practice detachment, but people have attachments towards having a certain outcome. And here's the biggest one, not just a certain outcome, but at a certain time. Like when something doesn't happen at the time that you want it, don't you find you ever get frustrated? I know I have. And so it's about, as you're on this spiritual path of growing and expanding into higher consciousness, into developing your spiritual gifts of intuition and listening to spirit and maybe connecting with your spirit guides, it's really important to practice that non-attachment to a goal at a certain time or in a certain form, because sometimes you get the actual goal that you desire, but it shows up in a slightly different form. And that's one of the big things I learned in my Buddhist practice when I first got on it, was if I just kept moving forward towards my goal, I usually almost always saw how it was fulfilling my actual ultimate desire, but it looked different. Because sometimes when we're on the spiritual path, our ego gets in there and we think we know exactly what's going to make us happy or exactly what's going to make us feel fulfilled. And sometimes we're not as clear as we think we are. And so you get something else, and then if you just kind of sit with it and you start to experience it, you go, oh, this is so much better. This is exactly what I want. And so I really encourage you, as you do this, to develop your abilities to, have a deeper connection with your spirit guides, and to have, the desire, I should say, to develop your intuition, because as that strengthens, your trust deepens. And so if you're looking for a way to connect more with your spirit guides, feel free to check out my free class I'm having on eventbrite.com. It's going to be held on Zoom, and you can go to eventbrite.com and sign up and just put in open the door to your spirit guides and sign up there. I'm also doing another class on discover the catalyst to your spiritual superpowers. So if you're somebody wanting to develop your intuition, come and learn the keys to developing those superpowers. And all you have to do again is go to eventbrite.com, type in the search box, discover the catalyst to your spiritual superpowers, and that will come up. All right? Have a miraculous day. Blessings.